In celebration of passing his driver's test, 17-year-old rich kid Brendan Khuri was gifted a brand new Lamborghini by his father. However, just weeks after receiving the car, 32-year-old Monique Munoz lost her life after Brendan's speeding antics on her way home from work on February 17, 2021. Whether you've heard his name 1,000 times before or are hearing it here for the first time today, it's no secret that James Khuri has established himself as one of the most wealthy men in America. James frequently posts photos of himself and his family on social media, bragging about his fast cars, lavish lifestyle, and his charitable deeds. Though it's James's son who is the focus of today's investigation, Brendan Khuri, who was just 17 years old and was James's pride and joy. In the days following the crash, it seemed as though police were unwilling to arrest the young man or hold his father accountable. However, after thousands of locals making a voice for victim Monique Munoz, it seemed like the tables are finally turning, and both James and Brendan may now face justice. As always, welcome back to Twisted Minds. My name's James, and this is the tragic case of Brendan Khuri. James Khuri is the head of the Khuri family and is the sole breadwinner as well. James has many claims to fame. However, he earns most of his money from trading card distribution business, known as JF Holdings. The company deals with a large variety of trading cards, many of which are marketed toward children and young adults. If you grew up in the late 1990s or early 2000s, you'd likely recognize several of the card brands he deals with, including the Pokemon trading card game and Yu-Gi-Oh! It's James's job to ensure that these cards get distributed all around the world. If you were to take this at face value, it seems like James is a pretty great guy, right? After all, he has made it his day job to bring smiles to kids around the world via trading card games. In fact, James loves to lean on this persona, often posting about his supposed good deeds on social media, gaining respect of more than 1 million people who follow him on Instagram. However, a look further into James's past reveals that he may not truly be the person he claims to be. A domestic violence charge from 2019 provides a small amount of evidence for this. In addition to trading cards, James has also become invested in many different pieces of real estate under the company name Khuri Enterprises. According to a report from Forbes, James had a goal of bringing in at least $200 million in sales in 2021 alone. These details about James are important to keep in mind, as it gives us a clear understanding of what Brendan Khuri's upbringing would have looked like, as it hasn't been very well documented, aside from his father's various posts about him on social media. Brendan was born in the early 2000s and obviously has led a very privileged life. Anytime he is seen in a photo, he is surrounded by luxurious items that many of us could only dream of affording. What sets Brendan aside from the other killers shown on our channel is that he's not the one with screwed intentions. Rather, he's the end result of being raised by a wealthy, powerful man willing to go any limits to have his way. More on that later. We have to remember, regardless of his fortunate upbringing, this was probably like any other Gen Z kid. He probably spent his time playing video games, watching his favorite YouTubers, and keeping up with the newest Netflix shows. It seems that James was desperate to share his fame and fortune with his teenage son. When his son got his learner's permit, James purchased him a Lamborghini SUV. From the images that have been shared online, this SUV seems to be a Lamborghini Urus, with the 8-cylinder turbocharged engine achieving 0 to 60 miles per hour of fewer than 4 seconds. It's understandable that Brendan was more than ready to push this car to its limits and see what it was really capable of out on the open road. Brendan's curiosity about his newly acquired automobile would seemingly reach a peak on February 17, 2021. Brendan was out driving around 5:15 p.m. near West Olympic Boulevard, just east of Overland Avenue. We don't know much about the events that led to Brendan to make a fatal mistake, but it is safe to assume that he had been cruising the streets that day, flexing his vehicle's power and driving erratically, as he would soon misjudge the distance between himself and another vehicle, resulting in a crash that is estimated to have taken place when Brendan was traveling at around 120 miles per hour. The crash would see Brendan's Lamborghini into the back of a Lexus, owned by Monique Munoz. At the time, Monique had been working as a receptionist in the nearby area. According to her family, Monique had no plans of remaining in her current job for much longer. She had just graduated from her university course and planned on attending law school in the near future. However, her plans were unexpectedly cut short when Brendan's mistake led her to losing her life upon impact. It was a truly tragic day for the Munoz family. However, some reports claim that Brendan may have also suffered from a brain injury. He would then go on to make what seems to be a full recovery fairly quickly. After police arrived at the scene of the accident, it became clear that Brendan's reckless behavior was the cause of the crash, though police would not be holding him accountable, which caused an uproar of those from the public looking into the investigation. When police didn't arrest Brendan at the scene of the crime, the case would fall onto the desk of the district attorney, George Gaskin. Though it seems as though George did not push the case forward either. This left the Munoz family both grief-stricken and incredibly angry that, although this boy was clearly responsible for the death of Monique after extremely excessive speeding, nothing was being done. It wouldn't be long before the Munoz family arranged both a candlelight vigil for their lost loved one, as well as a protest against the officers of the law who weren't holding the killer accountable. The case quickly made the rounds online and even attracted the attention of former Star Trek star Wil Wheaton. Wil reposted the story on his social media to do his part to help the case gain traction, and it seems like his efforts may have worked. The case quickly began to pick up steam, and eyes were on the Khuri family in the following weeks. As you might have expected at this point, neither James Khuri nor his son was willing to step up and admit fault. In fact, in the days after the crash, it had been reported that Brendan Khuri was seen partying around town with his friends. When someone approached him and accused him of being a killer, he reportedly laughed in their face. As it would turn out, James would also be accused of spending large amounts of money to clear his family's name and cover up his son's involvement in the crime. James would even spend a lot of his time on Instagram, deleting negative comments from his posts. Though James's money bribes and social media silencing didn't work forever, and by March of 2021, Brendan was arrested and charged with vehicular manslaughter. It was around this time that there were reports that Brendan had been street racing when he crashed. According to photos from the crime scene, as well as discussions among various police officers, there is a possibility that Brendan was racing an Audi sports car when he lost control and crashed. If you look back at several of the early photos from the crash, an Audi can be seen parked nearby. The Khuri family strongly denies that anyone else was involved in the crime. They say that they had no reason to believe that Brendan was racing anyone that evening. But it seems as though witness statements may refute these claims. According to several witnesses who happened to be driving down the same road at the same time of the crash, there were two vehicles involved in a high-speed race against one another. They recalled seeing Brendan's black SUV as well as the Audi that is seen in a few of the photos. Witnesses claim that these two cars were traveling at ridiculous rates of speed, with officers claiming that it appears as though Brendan was traveling at exactly 106 miles per hour at the time of the impact. Other experts claim that Brendan could have been traveling as fast as 120 miles per hour. Regardless of who may or may not have been traveling alongside Brendan that day, one thing is for sure. There is never a reason to be traveling in excess of 100 miles per hour on any public road at any time, let alone 5 p.m. on a weekday. Regardless of the scenario, the blame here must fall solely on Brendan and his actions. However, Brendan wouldn't be the only one that the public wanted to hold responsible for the death of Monique. They would quickly go after his father as well. Though James was not in the vehicle on the evening of Brendan's crash, many social media users claim that his father directly contributed to his son's activities by promoting illegal behavior on his social media pages. In particular, his father would often post about racing other drivers in his Lamborghini. One post managed to capture the attention of many users, with James posting in September of the following year, detailing how he won a street race against two motorcycle riders. He posted, "If anyone thought that bikes are faster than this Lambo, you are wrong. I took them all, and I only had one drink. I like this car." Even though James may have been under the legal alcohol limit for operating a vehicle, this post very clearly admits that James is no stranger to drinking and driving. All of this would lead to Brendan finally appearing in court alongside his mother. The two were seen weeping throughout the duration of Brendan's hearing, with Brendan willingly admitting guilt for his actions. It was reported that Brendan openly apologized to the victim's family and claimed full responsibility for what he had done. As you likely expected, many of those who were close with the case felt as though Brendan's actions were nothing more than an act to gain sympathy from the court. However, regardless of this, he pleaded guilty, so I suppose that's nothing more than speculation at this point. In the end, Brendan was sentenced to house arrest for the following months until he could return to court in June for sentencing. Though, again, this punishment is borderline useless. After all, much of California has remained on lockdown through 2021. So, it isn't too crazy to assume that Brendan wouldn't have left his house during those months anyways. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office earlier this year saying, Brendan Khuri has pled guilty to felony vehicular manslaughter. The 17-year-old appeared in juvenile court today to enter his plea deal, months after Munoz was killed. For Khuri, if he's found guilty, he could face between 1 to 6 years in prison. Another court appearance on June 30th will advance the case against the minor driver. This is where the case of Brendan hits a somewhat dead end. Even though he was due to appear in court several months ago, there have been no news reports about what his sentencing was. Since he was a minor at the time of the accident, he only faced a few months of probation at absolute maximum. However, the statement gives us a clear insight as to what's to come Brendan's way. 1 to 6 years in prison, that is. Considering investigators determined Brendan was speeding at over 100 miles per hour, the Munoz family and locals are outraged at Brendan having to spend such little time behind bars. In the aftermath of the case, James Khuri would then be arrested on the 11th of August 2021 for assault and domestic violence on his spouse. It's clear there's more behind the Khuri family than just a fast car and bad choices. And with Brendan willing to take accountability for his actions, perhaps it's James' turn to bite the bullet. At the time of the incident, it would take James Khuri several weeks to make any public statement regarding his son's actions on the evening of February 17th. Aside from spending countless hours deleting negative social media posts about his family, it seems as though James was also spending a lot of time crafting his response to the events that transpired. On March 10th, he took to Instagram and posted a response, which said, "I am aware that the time it has taken me to communicate this has caused further pain for everyone affected. Knowing that this will never do justice for the family of Monique Munoz, I want to apologize to the Munoz family for the tragic loss of their daughter. There are no words I can say to alleviate the pain that you are experiencing, and I realize none of my words or actions will be able to bring back your daughter. Still, I want to offer my support in any way you allow me to. My family and I pray for the Munoz family." In the weeks after this post was made, it also came to light that the Khuri family and Munoz family had been working closely with one another to reach a settlement outside of court that both families could agree on. We don't have any more information about if a settlement was reached or what the amount the settlement may have involved. After all, how could anyone put a price on the life of their daughter? It seems as though this potential settlement and apology from James did very little in the way of calming the nerves of the family or their supporters. In the days surrounding Brendan's appearance in court, there were dozens of people protesting outside of the courtroom. As a result, there were many people asking for the judge to hand down a minimum sentence of 6 years in prison. However, this punishment doesn't seem to fit with the crime that Brendan is charged for. Prosecutors refused to charge him as an adult, meaning he could only be tried as a minor. This means that regardless of the court's verdict, the worst that could possibly happen to Brendan would be a sentence of 9 months probation. In the end, regardless of where you land in this case, there is no amount of prison time or money that will ever bring justice to the Munoz family. They lost a very cherished member of their family that day, and nothing will bring Monique back. All we can do is hope that both Brendan and James pay for their mistakes, and for Brendan to be punished in the eyes of the law reasonably. Once they've served their time away from each other, hopefully they've learned from their actions and they will be able to move forward with their lives, bettering themselves for the sake of everyone around them. Thanks for tuning in to Twisted Minds. That was the case of Brendan Khuri. Oh, and why don't you go ahead and click on another one of the videos on your screen for another one of our videos.